Let's ask everybody's favorite age-old question. Can Cal pull themselves out of the middle or bottom out and make a change? Thomas Dunn, right for California.com, is joining me here to discuss just that because there's a quarterback battle. Fernando Mendoza is off at Indiana, as I mentioned earlier in today's program. And so that leaves Cal with a question of who's going to start. So let's start right there, Thomas. This is a quarterback battle for an ACC program. It's not the only one, but it's an interesting one for whatever you make of it. So, who's going to win?
The answer is we don't know. That's good. That's bad. Everything in between. But the leading candidates so far, Devin Brown, the transfer from Ohio State, and the one, the only, Jaren Sagapolutele, the once Cal commit, almost signee, Oregon signee, in Oregon, now back to Cal, hasn't played a down of college football yet. And here we are. So they're fighting for the starting quarterback role. EJ Kamenong on the outside looking in as a third string guy. And I think the way I could characterize it right now, consider we've only had like 7 or 8 spring practices, is we don't know what we don't know. None of the lead candidates have played so many snaps in college football. So even when you have guys who could be performing in spring practice like they are right now, there's no substitute for game experience. So while I would give the slight edge to Devin Brown just in terms of a higher floor, again, there's just not a clear conclusion at this point that we can make. But those are the 3 leading candidates.
Yeah, in Devin Brown, it's probably falling upon a lot of ears listening to or watching the show for the first time, hearing that guy who was at Ohio State that almost maybe started for the Buckeyes once upon a time. He played in that bowl game against Missouri. That guy's he's playing for who? He's at a Power 4 school, competing to be the starter. But JKS, you mentioned his unique path. Cal, flip to Oregon, go there for a couple practices, and then go back to Cal, where I think he always kind of wanted to end up. And part of the reason is because he's got a better chance to start his freshman year at Cal than he did at Oregon, where you've got Dante Moore and Austin Novosad in there, and they brought in a 4-star quarterback in the class of 2025. But is there any major upside for the Bears to investing in JKS and looking at Devin Brown and saying, he's an inexperienced veteran. He doesn't have a whole host of starting experience from his time with the Buckeyes, but he was on the roster there. He's been in college football a couple of years. He's played a little bit. Is there anything to the Cal coaching staff, Justin Wilcox and company, looking around and going, hey, this is a 5-star quarterback. This is a guy we want to keep around. He's going to be the future of the program. Let's just roll him out and start.
In most cases, I would say yes, but not in this particular case. And this is just my own perspective and opinion on it. We're entering year 9 of the Justin Wilcox era. There is
already?
No more time to wait. Nope, there is no more time to wait. The fan base is tired of it. They're not going to sit here and wait as a quarterback, regardless of how good they are rated, sit there through a possible 4-8 tire fire. I mean, the program needs wins. It needs cornerstones. It needs an identity. And it needs to perform. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and it doesn't matter who it is, what side of the ball, or how they get it done. If it's 3-2, if it's 50-49, win football games. If that's Devin Brown who's manning the ship at quarterback, it's Devin Brown. If that's JKS, it's JKS. But the coaching staff doesn't have the time, and while to figure that type of stuff out, and the fan base doesn't really have the time to wait. They may want JKS, but he may not be ready, and that's not a fault of him whatsoever. He'd be a true freshman getting thrown in the fire of Power 4 football. And you can only get so many good returns on that without, having your freshman moments or running into a type of defense you don't really see and just the general, turning it over ever so often. So the Cal coaching staff does not have time to figure this out. They have to get it right, and it doesn't matter who it is.
I think the JKS dynamic is one of several in college football that fascinate me because when you bring in a high-profile freshman like this, whether it's JKS at Cal, Bryce Underwood at Michigan, Juju Lewis at Colorado, you can find copious examples everywhere. Keelan Russell down at Alabama. The only downside, and I mean the only downside, when you bring in someone that's so highly recruited, that's got so much potential, is that the moment that you make him the backup, everyone's going to start to wonder in their head, is he supposed to be starting? Should he be on the field? The moment the guy in front of him starts to struggle, you're going to have people calling for this guy to get benched and this guy should be starting. And why did they even why did they bring this guy? Why did they do that? So I think if Devin Brown emerges as Cal's starting quarterback here, Thomas, there has to be a level of production that has a certain floor for the Cal fan base. Because as you mentioned, they're kind of restless. I think for them to keep the heat off Devin Brown, I think he's got to go out and have at least a winning record through the first half of the season.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is you don't want to placebo yourself into saying JKS 4 or 5 stars, depending on who you subscribe yourself to with recruiting rankings. Therefore, he has to start. He might just not be ready, and there's no reason. Well, there is some reason, I should say, to say this could be our cornerstone. We have to throw him out there regardless of what happens. But you don't want to flounder yourself because this coaching staff is on the hot seat. And what I love, JKS to take the bull by the horns and go establish himself as the day one starter and leave no doubt? Absolutely. Would I love it in the same vein if Devin Brown did the same thing? Absolutely. The fact of the matter is Cal needs to have someone who breaks out, someone who the coaching staff can get it right and continuously leave in the game in clutch situations. I'm looking at the Cal at Pitt game last year. I will not forget it when Justin took out Fernando on 3rd down with 2 minutes remaining. It's just a matter of doing those little things right, making sure the battle is clear, making sure the battle is won, and then making sure they go out and produce. Because you mentioned there could always be a look over your shoulder moment if Devin's named the starter, he doesn't perform. I think the same thing goes for JKS. You're the 5-star running out there day one. He throws 2 picks in the first half against Oregon State on the road. And everyone's saying, well, why is he starting? He's so raw, and the whole conga line down. So I think more than anything, get it right. Don't listen to the outside noise. Do your evaluations. If you get it wrong, well, I think we'll be resetting Cal football come this time next year anyway.
So quarterback, of course, matters a great deal. We all know that. But you can't win on your own as quarterback. You got to have some semblance of support, some semblance of help. And just really quick, Thomas, for those who are uneducated on the Cal Bears coaching staff, who's the offensive coordinator again? Who's the OC for Justin Wilcox?
I think some Auburn fans, some Boise State fans, they might Arkansas State fans even, they might remember this name. Brian Harsin.
Brian Harsin is the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And alongside him, analyst Nick Rolovich. Lots of fan bases know these names. And I've heard so far it's been a lot more, we'll say, direct line of communication, a lot more cerebral about this is what we expect, this is what we want, and this is what we're going to get. And look, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to go out and have a product that actually completes that. So we'll just have to wait and see because spring practice only tells you so much. But that's the vibe and the gist of, all right, it's all business because it has to be. There's no second chances when it comes to missing out on production this type of season with this type of schedule.
Lots of turnover with every college football roster every year now. If Cal is going to, let's say, overachieve or have what you define as a successful season to get in that 7-9 win range, give me one transfer that has to pop for the Bears.
Spencer, you're going to hate me for this cop-out answer. You really are. But it's a group. It's the offensive line.
That is a cop-out answer. That is a cop-out answer. I'll let you do it, though.
Yeah, it's the offensive line transfers, and that's the only correct answer if you're a Cal fan. For those who have watched Bears games last year, how many times did you look up and you saw Fernando Mendoza or Chandler Rogers getting sacked within 3 seconds?
Often.
There is no level of success that's attainable if the offensive line's not going to block in the run game for Jaden Ott or Javian Thomas, or if they're not going to block for whoever the quarterback is come day one. So all of the offensive line transfers, are the 5 of them that really stick out as, all right, some of these guys got to pop. Tyson Ruffins from Nevada, Leon Bell, Mississippi State, Lamar Robinson from Georgia State, Lawan Owens, who came over with offensive line coach Famika Ane from New Mexico, and Jordan Moko from Charlotte. So this group, with some of these returning players, they got to get coached up well, and they got to gel well, because the Cal's ceiling is so limited if the offensive line does not produce. And I trust Famika Ane to get it done because he built a road grader of an offensive line, especially in the run game at New Mexico. But it's one thing for me to talk about it. It's one thing for me to project about it. They have to do it. There's no time to waste. But that's the group that matters. That's the group of transfers that matters. And really, as much as everyone will focus on the quarterback battle, and rightfully so, none of this matters until the offensive line blocks.